I hope you're nice and cozy right now because for tonight's feast, I will be reading to you Mark Haddon's The Red House. I will only read 10 pages of this and I hope you enjoy and relax and listen. Cooling towers and sewage farms, Finstock Shalberry, Ascot Underwoodwood, 70 miles per hour, the train zipped the fields. Two gun-gray lines beside the river's meander. Flashes of sun on the hammered metal, something of steam about it even now. Hogwarts and Nattlestrop. The night wind crossing the border. Cheyenne sweeping down from the ridge. Delta blues from the boxcar. Somewhere, those secret points that might just switch and send you curving into a world of uniformed porters and great aunts and summers at the lake. Angela leaned against the cold window, hypnotized by the power lines as they sagged and were scooped up by the next gantry. Over and over and over, polytunnels like silver mattresses, indescribable swirls of graffiti on a brick siding. She buried her mother 6 weeks ago, a bearded man in a suit with shiny elbows playing Danny Boy on a tourbillon pipes. Everything out of kilter. The bandage in the biker's hand, the woman chasing her wild blown hats between the headstones, the dog that belonged to no one. She thought her mother had left the world a long way back, the weekly visits mostly for Angela's own benefit. Boiled mutton, classic FM, and commode in flesh-colored plastic. Her death should have been a relief. Then the first spade of earth hit the coffin. A bubble rose in her chest, and she realized her mother had been, what? A cornerstone? A breakwater? The week after the funeral, Dominic had been standing at the sink bottle brushing the green face. The last of the freak snow was still packed down the side of the shed, and a rotary washing line was turning in the wind. Angela came in, holding the phone, as if it was a mystery object she'd found on the hall table. That was Richard. Dominic appended the vase on the wire rack, and what did he want? He offered to take us on a holiday. He tried his hand on a tea towel. Are we talking about your brother? Or some entirely different Richard? We are indeed talking about my brother. He really had no idea what to say. Angela and Richard had spent no more than an afternoon in each other's company over the last 15 years, and their meeting at the funeral had seemed perfectly at the best. Where's the exotic location? He's rented a house on the Welsh border, near Hay and Wye, the fine sandy beaches of Herefordshire. He half a tea towel and hung it on the radiator. I said, yes. Well, thanks for the consultation. Angela paused and held his eye. Richard knows we can't afford a holiday of our own. I'm not looking forward to it any more than you. But I didn't have a great deal of choice. He held up his hands. Point taken. They had this argument way too many times. Herefordshire it is then. Ordnance Survey 161, the Black Mountains. Dominic flipped up the pink cover and unfolded the big paper concertina. He had loved maps since he was a boy. Here be monsters. X marks a spot. The edges of the paper brown and scalloped with burning match. Messages flash from peak to peak using triangles of broken mirror. He looked sideways at Angela, so hard to remember, the girl at the far side of the Union Bar, her shoulders in the blue summer dress. She disgusted him now. The size and sag of her, the veins on her calves, almost a grandmother. He dreamt of her dying unexpectedly, rediscovering all those freedoms he'd lost 20 years ago. Then he had the same dream 5 minutes later, and he remembered what poor use he'd made of those freedoms. First time round, and he heard the squeak of a trolley wheels and saw the bags of fluid. All those other lives you never get to lead them. He gazed out of the window and saw a narrowboat on the adjacent canal. Some bearded pillock at the tiller pipe. Mug of tea. Ahoy there, matey. Stupid way to spend a holiday. Banging your head every time you stood up. A week in a boat with Richard. Think of that. They were in the middle of nowhere. Thank goodness, if it all got too much, that he could walk up into the hill and yell at the sky. To be honest, it was Angela he was worried about. All that hardwired sibling friction. Do not return one slit and so forth. Richard's hair. Yes, now that he thought about it, it was where the evil was located. This luxuriant black crest, like the tusk of a bull walrus, a warning to beta males, or like a separate creature entirely, some alien life form that had pushed suckers into his skull and was using him as a vehicle. The children sat opposite. Alex, 17, was reading Main Force by Andy McNabb. Daisy, 16, was reading a book called The Art of Daily Prayer, and Benji, 8, had swiveled so that his feet were on the headrest, and his head was hanging over the edge of the seat, eyes closed. Angela poked his shoulder with a toe of her shoe. What on earth are you doing? I'm on horseback riding beheading Nazi zombies. They looked like children from three separate families. Alex, the athlete, all shoulders and biceps, off into the blue, wide yonder, every other weekend, canoeing mountain, biking. Benji, a kind of a boy liquid which had been poured into whatever space he happened to be occupying. And Daisy. Angela wondered if something dreadful had happened to her daughter over the past year. Something that might explain the arrogant humility, the way she made herself so ostentatiously plain. They plunged into a tunnel and the windows thumped and clattered. She saw an overweight, middle-aged woman floating out there in the dark for several seconds before she vanished in the blast of sunlight and poplars, and she was back in her body again, dress pinching at the waist, beads of sweat in the small of her back, that train smell, burning dust, hot brakes, the dull reek of toilets. Carter placed his boot on the man's shoulder and rolled him over. This couldn't be happening. He killed Bunny O'Neill. They trained together in the Cardinals 10 years ago. What was an ex captain doing in the middle of Afghanistan, armed with a black market Soviet rifle? Trying to assassinate a billionaire head of the international company? Further down the carriage, the ticket collector was squatting beside a bird-frail woman with long, long gray hair and spectacles on a red string. So, you've come on the train with no ticket and no means of payment? Shaved head, cloudy blue tattoo on his meaty forearm. Angela wanted to pay for her ticket and save her from this bullying man. She was trying to pick something invisible from the air with her tiny, liver-spotted hands. I can't. Is someone meeting you in Hereford? A tenderness in his voice which she hadn't heard for the first time. He touched the woman's arm gently to get her attention. A son, maybe? Or a daughter? A woman clawed in the air. I can't quite. Angela felt a prickle at the corner of her eye and turned away. Richard had been married 6 months ago, acquiring a stepdaughter into the bargain. Angela hadn't gone to the wedding. Edinburgh has a long way. It was a term time and it never felt like a brother and sister. Just two people who spoke briefly on the phone every few weeks or so to manage the stages of their mother's decline. She'd met Louisa and Melissa for the first time at the funeral. They looked as if they'd been purchased for an exclusive catalog at some exorbitant price. Flawless skin, matching black leather boots. The girl stared at her and didn't look away when Angela caught her eye. Bob chestnut hair, black denim skirt, almost but not quite too short for a funeral. So much sheen and sneer at 16. Melissa's directing a play at the school. A Midsummer's Night's Dream. Something slightly footballer's wife about Louisa. Angela couldn't picture her going to the theater or reading a serious book. Couldn't imagine the conversation she and Richard might have when they were alone. But his judgment of other people had always been a little wobbly. 10 years married to a ginger witch, the presents he bought for the kids when he last visited. So much effort aimed in the wrong direction. Benji's football arrow, Daisy's bracelet. She wondered if he was making a new version of the same mistake, whether she was simply not Jennifer. It was another rung on the social ladder. I'm going to the loo. Benji stood up. My bladder is so awesomely full. Don't get lost, she touched his sleeve. You can't get lost in a train. A sick pervert could strangle you, said Alex, and throw your body at the window. I'll punch him in the crotch. Crotch, said Alex. Critch, crotch, crotch, sang Benji as he made his way up the carriage. Eventually, we find out we no longer need silence. We no longer need solitude. We no longer even need words. We can make all our actions holy. We can cook a meal for our family and it becomes a prayer. We can go for a walk in the park and it becomes a prayer. Alex photographed a herd of cows. What was the point of being black and white? Evolutionarily? He hated real violence. He could still hear the snap of Callum's light that night in Karachi. He felt sick when he saw footage from Iraq or Afghanistan. He didn't tell anyone about this, but Andy McNabb tamed it by turning it into a cartoon. And now he was thinking about Melissa unzipping the black denim skirt. The word unzipping gave him an erection, which he covered with the novel. But was it okay fancying your uncle's stepdaughter? Some people married their cousins, and that was acceptable. Unless you both had recessive genes for something bad. Your babies came out really, well, fucked up. But girls who went to private school were secretly gagging for it, with their tans and their white knickers that smelt of fabric conditioner. Except she probably wouldn't speak to him, would she, because girls only spoke to twats with floppy hair and skinny jeans? On the other hand, normal service was kind of suspended on holiday and maybe they'd be sharing a bathroom and he'd go in. And he opened the shower cubicle door and squeezed her soapy self so she moaned. A man is trapped in a hot flat above the shipyard, caring for a wife who will live out her days in his bed. Watching his television, twin sisters are separated 7 weeks and know nothing of one another. Only an absence that walks beside them, always on the road. A girl is touched by her mother's boyfriend. A child dies and doesn't die. A family, that slippery word. A star to every wandering bark, and everyone sailing under a different sky. And then there was her fourth child, the child that no one else could see. Karen, her loved and secret ghost, stillborn all those years ago. Hawk's jeans feeling along the midline of her head. Her little monster features melted into the center of her face. They told her not to look, but she looked and screamed at them to take the thing away. Then, in the small hours, while Dominic slept and the ward was still, she wanted that tiny, damaged body in her arms again, because she could learn to love her. She really could. But the points had switched, and Karen had swerved away. I hope you enjoy this quick reading of Mark Haddon's The Red House. Also, I hope that this slight noise you hear in the background could be very relaxing. And with that being said, until next time, good night, my beautiful, beautiful angels. Sweet dreams.